Welcome back to another episode of Feng Shui Living, where we explore how to create harmonious spaces in our busy lives. And today's topic is something that a lot of you have asked for, Feng Shui for small spaces. Whether you live in an apartment, a tiny home, maybe you're in a camper trailer traveling the country, this can feel like you have limited area to create balance in your space. But it's definitely possible with the right approach. Let's dive in. Welcome to Feng Shui Living, a podcast for busy women looking to de-stress and live with more intention. I'm Lisa Morton, and I'm passionate about helping you create a home that not only inspires you, but empowers you. Years ago, I was severely struggling with my mental health and wellness, and while I'd implemented yoga, meditation, therapy, and more, I just could not find that missing piece of the puzzle. And that was until I explored my home. You see, the interior designer in me had made it beautiful, but it wasn't supporting me energetically. Fast forward, and I've now been in the interior design industry for 20 years, and I've devoted the past 10 years to Feng Shui and a holistic design approach. In this podcast, I'll be sharing with you interviews, stories, and knowledge, as well as some super easy, simple tips that you can take on today. If you're looking to be more intentional and create a life and home that you love, then you're in the right place. Welcome, friends, to today's episode of Feng Shui Living. We're talking about small spaces. So many of you have reached out and asked me about this. I know so many people living in RVs, traveling the country. You're literally on wheels, so it is so important to have your space balanced. It's also important if you have a smaller apartment or a tiny house. You don't have to have a huge, gigantic home to have a space that really supports you. So I'm so excited to be doing this episode today. Another nudge I had was reached out by, it was apartments.com reached out to me for a comment on tiny spaces, small spaces, and how to set them up for good feng shui. And I was like, wow, okay, here's a sign. I have to do this episode. So this is going to be beneficial for you. If you have a giant home, but also if you have a small home, I really want you to think outside the box and get really creative. Here we go. Let's dive in. I have 5 tips to help you design your small spaces to really make the most of your home. And the first tip I want to talk about today is optimizing your entry. I know you guys hear me talk about the entry all the time and the importance of this mouth of qi, but it's really the first impression. It sets the tone for the entire rest of the space, especially in a small space. Small spaces can be really tight. They can be snug. So it's crucial to keep this area, clear and inviting. So get creative with how you can store things. There are things we have to leave near the door, especially in a smaller space. How can you keep them there without making it feel bulky? We want to make sure the door can open fully, so there aren't shoes behind the door, coats stacked up. You can't even open the door all the way. So get creative. I love to recommend floating shelves. Depending on the weight, they might have to be really securely mounted, but floating shelves are amazing. They don't take up a lot of space. They can be hung up higher. You can add keys, mail. You can even put a small purse up there, a handbag up there. So floating shelves are really great. Anything a wall-mounted shelving of system of sorts. I actually have this one in my house, has some baskets in it. You can slide things in, and we'll drop the mail in there. But it's pretty narrow, and it's nice because you can still walk past it. Because we want to contain the keys, the mail. We want to keep those things so it doesn't look cluttered. Also, a mirror is excellent to expand the space. It visually feels like the room gets bigger when you add a mirror, and it also reflects light, which will lighten and brighten the whole space again, making it feel bigger. The key here is to remember to make sure your mirror doesn't reflect the entry. Okay, that's the feng shui no-no because that will send all the qi back out the front door. We want to pull it in. So make sure you're keeping an eye on what the mirror is reflecting. So imagine walking into this clutter-free, entryway where everything kind of has its place, right? The keys have their spot, the mail has their spot, your shoes have a cubby, a closet to go in, and it just feels better. You can drop your shoulders when you walk in. And also guests, they will feel more welcome. They'll feel more at ease as they walk into your space too. Tip number 2 is utilize multifunctional furniture. Depending on how small it is, you might have to get really creative on how many different ways you can use one piece of furniture. Look for furniture that can be easily folded, stacked, hid underneath, slid behind, because that's going to make life easier. You can bring in a sofa bed for a guest bed. If you have a small apartment but you're expecting guests, that's a great way to have an extra bed, but then it turns into the sofa. A Murphy bed is also really nice. You can have a desk area and then turn it into a guest room if you need. Hidden storage. This is something I love, is hidden storage. Storage ottomans, those cube ottomans, are some of my favorite pieces to work with. I've spec'd these out for clients so many times. One of my favorite tricks for a small space is to get a beautiful sofa table for an entry area and something that's narrow, right? And just small. You have a place to put your keys, you have a place to put the mail, all those things you need, but then you can slide these great little square storage ottomans underneath. They serve as extra seating, and they're light, they're easy to move throughout the home wherever you need that extra seating, and then they have storage even more inside. So I love to use extra storage here as, you could throw shoes if it's near the entryway. You could throw blankets. I love to throw blankets. We have a big round ottoman in our great room, and I love to throw extra blankets in there, and then it's extra seating, and it's just the best. So you start with the small square ottomans. They're awesome. You can find them everywhere for a steal. The hidden storage is really going to help you out. So think about furniture that really maximizes function without, compromising style, but can be hidden and put away. Again, utilize multifunctional furniture. Tip number 3, this is all about creating vertical storage systems. So when your floor space is limited, go up. Go up. We don't realize how much storage space is wasted as we go up. Now, I don't know, 12 years ago, I started my own business and I worked part-time for Closet Factory. So it's a franchise business of where they do closets. I designed closets, these beautiful luxury closets, glass doors, chandeliers, the whole thing. But also we did a ton of garages, pantries, laundry rooms, craft rooms, sewing rooms. I even designed a space for a woman who had 5 kids, and her kids were constantly going to birthday parties, so we created a wrapping station for her just to wrap all these birthday gifts. But the thing I learned there really opened my eyes to getting creative with storage, and that is to go up. If you look up in the closet, you have your rod with your clothing, and then there's a shelf, and beyond that, it's just wasted space. Now, I will have people say, well, I can't get to that. What am I going to do? Well, that's where you store your off-season things. That's where you store the holiday ornaments that you get down once a year and you put back once a year. That's where you store those things you don't need very often. So remember to go vertical. Use wall-mounted shelves. Look for extra tall bookcases for storage. Hanging organizers, something that I've done. I actually just worked with a woman, and we did this too. I love to use ladders, especially cool old vintage ladders. And she had a guest space that also served as an office. And we took extra bedding and blankets and everything and towels and hung those over the ladder. It looked really cool. Plus, she didn't have storage for these items, so it just worked out beautifully. So see how you can get things off the floor, less big bulky pieces of furniture. This will help maintain a sense of openness, okay? So install those floating shelves in the living room, the kitchen. The floating shelves, like I said, they're great for keys and mail, but also books, plants. We always need plants. Even in your kitchen, floating shelves are great for kitchenware. Make sure it's heavy duty because we don't want to have heavy dishes and it come crashing down at 2 a.m. But, some lighter objects might go great. It might be great storage for your coffee mugs. And then don't forget over-the-door organizers. This can be great for shoes, just additional storage. Just be mindful that the door can still fully open. Tip number 4, use light and color wisely. So light and color really play significant roles in making a space feel more open, feel larger. I recently did a talk about color, and we talked about accent walls. So accent walls are fun. Some designers are like, accent walls are out. I'm like, if you think it's fun, who cares if it's in or out, right? If you like it. But when you're doing an accent wall, you have to be mindful that painting one wall is going to change the shape of your room. It might make it feel more narrow. It might make it feel more long. It's going to affect, depending on what wall you paint, how it feels. So be mindful. If you have a small space, I really recommend sticking to one neutral color, a paler color, one color. You can accent, you can pull in colors through cushions and throws and all that stuff. But the overall color, I always recommend a neutral, a off-white, a soft white, something really quiet so that it just feels more open. And then make sure, your furniture feels open. Get sofas. If you have a small apartment, get a sofa with feet, tall feet, so that it's not coming all the way down to the floor. That will feel more open. The same with chairs, glass coffee tables, glass dining tables. That will bring more of a sense of just an openness. Next is adding mirrors, because again, just like we talked about the entry, the mirror is going to help. The mirror is going to help make the space feel larger, and is going to help it feel brighter and more energized. So imagine a bedroom space. If you're painting it soft whites, it's going to feel airy and spacious. If you need to have the windows blocked out for sleep or for security, think about maybe some soft sheers, if that's enough to block out any views. If you live in an apartment, you might have a neighbor across the street that might be able to look in. So I love those 2-inch wood slat blinds, because then you can tilt the louvers so you still get plenty of natural light, but you have, it blocked out for safety and security. I love soft, gauzy, sheer draperies in your bedroom or anywhere, because sometimes in small spaces, when we have so many harsh lines of a window, the window trim, it can just cut into the space. So by adding just some soft sheer or some textured linen type drapery panels, they don't even have to cover the window if you don't want. It just softens those edges of the window and will make your space feel softer and more comfortable, okay? If you need help with this, let me know. I do offer my free 15-minute discovery call. And while you're over on my website scheduling your call, sign up for my newsletter. Let's move on to tip number 5, maintain a clutter-free environment. Of course, I'm going to say this. Clutter is the enemy of positive energy. So we want to keep, our clutter to a minimum. Now, we all have stuff. We all have piles. We have things. It's being mindful of how much, being mindful of where it is and what it is. Sometimes it can be something small, but it has a really big impact on our bodies, on our nervous systems, on our space. So be very mindful. I recommend, especially in a small space, the 1 in, 1 out routine. If you bring in a new pair of shoes, one's got to go. If you bring in a new, pasta pot, a big pot, the old one's got to go. So 1 in, 1 out is a great rule. Every time you bring something new into your home, something old's got to go. It will help you keep clutter to a minimum. And then regularly, assess your bedroom. Bedroom closets can get pretty full. As I said years ago, I worked at Closet Factory, and I would see some people's closets, and they had clothes from decades ago piled up that they were never going to wear again. They just saved them. What are you saving them for? My husband had this problem. He was saving these old athletic t-shirts, these sports teams and things. And so I had a t-shirt quilt made for him. So he could, because he wanted these images to honor and celebrate some of the fun sporting events you went to in his life. And so I made this t-shirt quilt. So it was really fun. So it's a beautiful quilt he has in his office, and he can enjoy looking at it, but he doesn't have a stack of useless t-shirts. I also always think of, when I think about closets overflowing, I don't know if you guys remember that movie with Katherine Heigl, 27 Dresses. This gal was always the bridesmaid and never the bride. And she had 27 bridesmaid dresses shoved into this New York City apartment. And it was kind of this joke of how she'd try and get the door shut and all this poof was coming out, right? So one in, one out, be mindful, edit. Do you need 5 pairs of black pants or do you need 2? And then you can donate the other pair to someone who doesn't have any. Think about what you have, what other people need. They will get so much more benefit out of having a pair of black pants than you will out of having 5. So again, check in with your closet. This not only makes finding things easier and your day go smoother, but your small space will just feel more serene. So just to recap, these 5 feng shui tips for maximizing harmony in your small space, whether that's an apartment, a tiny home, a camper, maybe just a small little nook, a house, a villa, whatever. There's so many names for small homes, but just because it's small does not mean you don't deserve excellent balanced energy. Doesn't mean it can't support you. Sometimes you just have to get a little creative with things. So to recap, here are those 5 things to really maximize harmony in your small space. Number 1 is optimize your entry. Keep it light and bright and get pieces to store. There's great small shelves, floating shelves to store your keys and such. Utilize multifunctional furniture. Pieces of furniture that can serve more than one purpose. Create vertical solutions. Go up in storage. See how you can get tall bookshelves. Use light and color wisely. Again, I always recommend defaulting to a pale neutral and then accent with other fun colors. And number 5, maintain a clutter-free environment. It is so important. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Feng Shui Living today. If you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to subscribe and leave me a great review. I so appreciate it. Not only does it support me, but my entire team. And if you have an idea for an episode, I know so many of you asked about this. If you have another idea, let me know. Send me a message, put it in the comments, and I will be sure to add it to the list. Have a fantastic day. Special thanks to our production company, Influencer.tv, the WELT 95.7 studios, and our sponsor, Good She. For more information, head over to the show notes. Be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. I'll see you next time.